main questions that comes up when people are first learning their design is that if they don't identify with certain aspects of their chart, it doesn't feel like you, and you might be expecting when you first get your chart for it to resonate completely and sound exactly like who you thought you were. The main sort of reason why that doesn't happen is because our mind is already kind of like trying to interfere with the process. So the mind likes to say, you work like this, or you are someone who needs that, or whatever. And so sometimes what can happen is if our mind is taking too much control in the process, it's almost like we're expecting the human design information to fit in with what the mind is already dictating about who we think we are. And the truth is that the chart doesn't really care about what our mind says. So it's called a human design experiment because it suggests that it's not supposed to be that you know all these things already about yourself right off the gate. It's that when you put them into place and you experiment with living your design, life starts to open up, and there seems to be more flow, and there's more ease and better health and more abundance and all of these things. So just because your mind can't yet conceive a different way of doing things, it doesn't mean that it's wrong for you. The second thing is that usually when you're hearing certain labels that come with human design, like your energy type, for example, is still a label, or your profile, or any of the different aspects, those things are things that we attach certain meanings to. So say, for example, a very common one is that people assume that all manifesting generators are loud and aggressive and sort of super energetic and all over the place, literally, rather than just energetically. And they assume that projectors are quiet and sensitive and the only ones that can have intuition or feelings about things sometimes. And that's another place to really, just make sure that we're not sort of jumping to conclusions about what certain things mean, rather than just paying attention to the fact that with the energy type, for example, we're talking about the energetic exchange that you have with the universe. So for me, for example, as a projector, I could actually have more in common with 3 generators than I could with 3 other projectors, just because the way that we're supposed to exchange energy is the same. It doesn't make us all have one personality. It doesn't make us all have one tendency. We don't all love cucumbers and all other types like peppers. It doesn't really work like that. So one of the main things that human design is about encouraging our individualized self rather than the homogenization of society. So we don't want to use human design as yet another tool for keeping us the same and also to create separation and dogma and labels. We want to use it to really help us live out our lives better, not to know how we should be living out our lives, but really just as information to cue us as to whether you should try something out in your life. So when you're looking at your chart and it's saying, for example, that you are as part of your digesting life profile, so if you're looking at your chart and, for example, you're seeing that your digestion is best off eating only one thing at a time, it might very well be that your mind is fighting against that, because everything that you've been told and everything you've been conditioned about the way to eat is to balance things, and you need a mix of certain macronutrients at every meal and all those things. And so your mind is going to give you that resistance in the beginning, because don't forget, the conditioned self, which is run by the mind, isn't just going to give up, overnight if you've spent 30 years living according to it and giving the mind all the reins and all the control. It's not just going to give up the control overnight. So it's going to give you that pushback, and that's a normal part of your chart. Now, obviously, of course, if your chart really doesn't sound like you want to make double sure that you're putting in your correct birth time, that you're putting it in the right order in military time. You want to be double checking, for example, with your birth certificate or with your parents that you've got the right time. But once you've looked into that properly, and you have the exact birth time, and not just, oh yeah, it was about 10 past type of thing. Like if you have an exact birth time, then everything in your chart will come down to, what it is, the extent to which you recognize your real self, versus sometimes we're just further away from it. And so it's harder for us to recognize. But don't wait for your mind to wrap your head around it to start doing it, because sometimes you have to live it out, because most of the time you have to live it out and see how much more flow you can open up when you are embracing your design, or you're just curious about your design, than what you're doing right now. Most of us kind of think we're doing okay as we are, right? But we have no idea how much better we can feel, how much more we can thrive, how much more effortless our dream life can be once we start taking the suggestions of what the chart is suggesting for us. Now, to remember, it's not, a system for control. It's not a religion. It's not a culty thing. It's not a trendy thing. It is literally an experiment, which means that it's only supposed to really get integrated into your system, and you're really supposed to live it out with full faith once you've actually tried it and seen how the effects of it have happened and improved in your own life. So I know it's difficult, but we have to let the mind sort of take a back seat. And as much as we don't maybe trust in the beginning, if you have the curiosity and you're watching this, you definitely do have the curiosity to just implement it. And what do you have to lose? Try it for 30 days and see if more flow opens up in your life, more happiness, and just more feeling at ease inside your body. And if it doesn't, you can always go back to your old ways. You've got nothing to lose.